The floor is open to public comments on agenda items only. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and city, and make your comment. You will be allotted 3 minutes. Please make sure that you have signed in at the reception desk.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Hanushak, Niles, Illinois. I'm speaking to the new business, item 12G, resolution of inducement for the proposed Golf Mill Shopping Center redevelopment project. I had a chance to read this. I noticed one thing that you guys are voting on this is also, it showed this as being a draft, not a final. So just wanted to find out if that's what you're really voting on, is a draft. That's what it showed as a document attached. Also, it shows the developer needs $100 million. $50 million of that dollars is the first 2 years. The question is, do you have that $50 million? Also, previous board stated that they will do a pay-as-you-go. They won't do it, they won't go out for funding, for bond. Wanted to find out if the intention is to put the taxpayers out on bond for this, put them on the hook for this development. I notice also the question is, for funding, will you be using the other TIF districts to be funding it? Because they're adjoining TIF districts, if you could answer. Mayor, why are you smiling the whole time? Could you, I'm being serious.
I just got done.
No, you're just, I'm over here talking about
Chris, we're
something
not here
the whole
to
time.
cross-talk. Thank you.
All right?
Don't address me. Keep
No,
talking
I am.
about
You got to pay
agenda
attention to what
items
we're
only,
here.
please.
This is
Thank
an
you very
agenda item.
much.
Pay attention.
I am.
You need to stop, take the smirk off.
Sir, keep going like that. I'm going to ask you to leave.
I know you like doing that. So the question is, are you planning on putting taxpayers on the hook for this by putting it out for bond? So the question is, do you have $50 million in the first 2 years available? Because that's what they need.
Anyone else on agenda items only?
Good evening, Board and Mr. Mayor. So agenda item 8A for the official certificate of results for the Village of Niles referenda. I got a letter in the mail last month, and the header says, Friends of George Alpaginas. So I'm going to read a brief portion of what this letter says, and I assume this was sent to every person in the Village of Niles living here. So about 10 years ago, a small group who I deem borderline radical started a small and quiet movement here in our village. They started pushing referendums.
Steve, it's not an agenda item.
Agenda item 8A is an agenda item, and I'm addressing something related to that, okay, which I received in the mail. They started pushing referendums through without telling people the true story behind them. Little by little, they started chipping away at our rights as citizens. So I'm going to stop myself here, and I'm commenting on the verbiage that was used in this letter. It says, who I deem borderline radical. It later goes on to say that you've chosen to align with people who are very active at the Niles Library, who also are anti-police and are self-proclaimed communists. So, I would like to know, how am I a radical, and how the referendums from 2014 onward have somehow chipped away at our citizens' rights.
So I just want to point out that you do have to talk about the agenda item. So if we're talking about related,
yeah, item 8A,
keep it
official
that.
Certificate results for the Village of Niles referenda. This is about the referenda. It was sent to every person in the village of Niles, calling the people who got these referendums on the ballot and had them passed by the voters overwhelmingly each time. This letter's calling us, including me, radical. I don't know if any of you've watched the library board meetings as of late. Actually, the whole entire past year, you can see that there's actually a lot more radicalization going on over there.
Agenda, please.
Well, the referenda that was on the June 28th ballot did
And
not
time's
pass.
up.
Pardon?
The time is up.
Well, there was crosstalk, so I requested an extra 20 seconds at least.
Give it to him.
If it's about the agenda item.
Yeah, agenda item 8A, June 28th, 2022 primary gubernatorial election, official certificate results. This is what I came to talk about, and you guys are telling me I'm out of time. But
Thank you,
yeah,
Stephen.
the Niles Coalition is anti-police, and this is who the village decided to align with. So thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Good evening, Luella Preston, Board and Mayor. New business item 12A, the annual appointment of Fred Braun as Public Works Director. Thank you very much for doing that, Mayor and Board. Fred has been an outstanding department head of Public Works. I've worked with him on a variety of things, and because it's not on the agenda, I will hold it for public comment as to my latest concern. I too want to address item 8A, the primary gubernatorial election, and I at the May board meeting asked the village clerk why she hadn't given us some information, and at that time I was told that the attorneys from the village had to put together the package of information to go out to the citizens. And once I received that information in the mail from the village, nowhere on that information, nor in the newspapers, nor online, did I find information telling me that as a citizen, I could have voted on the referenda only, that I did not have to declare myself as a Democrat or a Republican. And I found that very disconcerting. And going forward, when you have a primary election where people have to declare themselves, I ran into a number of people in the village, asked them if they were going to be voting, and they said no. And I said, are you not voting because you must declare yourself as a Democrat or a Republican? And they said yes. And I said, you can go in and request only a ballot for the referenda. And they were very unaware of that. So look back at your documentation, village clerk, and the board, and the mayor. Going forward, you were not being transparent to the citizens of the village.
Thank you, Luella. Okay, public comments. We'll now take public comments for anything you want to talk about. Come on up and talk to us.
Good evening, Chris Hanushak, Niles, Illinois. I didn't have a chance to be here last month. My public comment is about the selling of the Granger building, part of it, whatever, to Costco for $3 million. We paid for, I guess, $8 million. We sold it for $3 million. My question to you guys is, have you guys done a traffic study over there? I mean, the traffic is vicious over there now, and if the parking lot's on the other side and people are going to be coming across, has there been a traffic study? That was a problem with the issue before, and the traffic is, is very crazy over there in regards to that situation. I'd like to also, if we could, I don't know if I have to FOIA, but if you guys could please put out the monies that you spent on promoting the referenda. For the last referendum, how much taxpayer money was spent for that promotion, the referenda that did not pass. Also, what's going on? I mean, the village has bought Granger, they bought the Marathon Station, all these areas that are in the TIF areas. And I looked at your economic development plan, and the Marathon area gas station where it was, it's on the low levels, not to be even looked at for redevelopment soon or anything like that. So my question is, with this TIF district, with this $100 million being asked for Gulf Mill, will there be money for the 2E triangle, the Milwaukee-Waukegan area? You've TIFed all of these areas. My question, are you guys going to disperse money out of those areas so you guys could cover Gulf Mill, and then other areas won't have money for redevelopment? I mean, it's a real question. It's not something to joke about, but because they're asking for $100 million. You guys didn't even talk about it. That's what you guys voted on. You didn't even talk about it. They need $50 million in the first 2 years, in 23, 24, from the village of Niles for the project to go. And you guys didn't even talk about it. You just voted yes on it. I don't know if you even read it. My next question would be, I guess, you asked to get rid of the other referendum. Will the next referendum that you guys want to push off will be term limits? Is that the next one? I mean, the group that pushed for those other referenda are the same group that got term limits in here. Maybe people up here wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for term limits. I mean, previous mayor tried to do that for himself. Will you try doing that too also? Do the same, follow his footsteps? Do what the people did. You stated it once before, Mayor. That's what the people voted for, that's what it should, but you try to overturn what they were doing. And then the documentation that was sent out to people is just very confusing. Very confusing. It confused everybody. I hope going forward that this doesn't ever happen again, and that you guys do not use taxpayer money for these types of referenda. It's horrendous what you guys did. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening again, Mayor, Board of Trustees, staff, Luella Preston Niles, trustee, 1985 to 2013. I have 3 quick things that I want to review. The first one is I attended the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on June 6, 2022. At that time, they considered 22 ZP 16, which is at 9201 North Milwaukee Avenue. And at that time, they were given a variance to allow for a building height of 52 feet where 40 feet is allowed, a variation to provide 129 parking stalls where 132 are required, a variation to allow for interior parking for landscaping coverage, interior parking for landscaping coverage of 0%, where 10% is required, and a variation from Niles zoning ordinance section 11.9B to allow a driveway to encroach into the required landscape buffer yard. While I was trustee, I was chair of what was then the Beautification Committee, and the flowers that you see at various venues here in the Niles harken back to that. I'm just really concerned about this. It's right near where I live, and there was a big turnout of the neighbors in the area who all did not want this to pass. The village attorney was there, and she knows. It's just not a good fit for that area. The second thing that I wanted to mention is beautification, and out front of this building, you really need to make it better than what it is. The tree box, as you come down the stairs to the left, is not very good. I have been past the Skokie Village Hall, the Park Ridge Village Hall, and those venues are much better looking than ours. The last thing that I want to talk about is my street, Maryland, that was under construction from November 29th, 2021 to April 25th, 2022, and I can show you the pictures on my phone. I got a letter from the Resident Information Bulletin. My street is going to be reconstructed, but now we haven't done anything for 2 months because of the strike. Please don't tear up the street over the winter again for 6 months. And currently on the village website, Church Street closure and Maryland Street partial closure. The last update was December 16th, 2021. Let's have a little more current information. Thank you.
Thank you, Luella. Anybody? David?
Hello, board, mayor, and community members. My name is David Sutherland, and I use he, him pronouns. And by the way, before I start, to be clear, I'm the radical anti-police communist. It's definitely not that other guy, so just want to start with that. 1 week before the 4th of July, an innocent 25-year-old black man named Jalen Walker was murdered by police in Akron, Ohio. In 2020, the murder of George Floyd by police caused a racial uprising that brought global attention to the oppression of black people in this country. But in contrast, the heinous murder of Jalen Walker received little attention by white people in 2022. And that is what compelled me to raise my voice for Black Lives Matter and protest this year's Niles 4th of July parade. To me, it's an absurd contradiction to celebrate freedom when people in our own country don't experience that unfulfilled promise. As Fannie Lou Hamer said, nobody is free until everybody is free. I read aloud the names of over 50 George Floyds murdered in 2022 alone. In fact, people are murdered almost every day by police in the United States, with black people being 3 times as likely to be murdered than white people. As tragic as these stats are, let's not forget the harm that happens to people who don't get instantly murdered, but instead sent into the jaws of the carceral punishment system, prison. The United States is the incarceration nation. With only 5% of the world's population, it has nearly 25% of its prisoners, about 2.2 million people. The abolition movement started with the elimination of slavery. The modern form today continues its goal of liberation with the elimination of prisons and police. It's easy to agree with the abolition of slavery, given the hindsight of 150 years, but we are complicit with white supremacy if we can't take the same stance on the abolition movement today. I believe Black Lives Matter, and I feel those words of Fannie Lou Hamer. Protesting alone in those streets on Independence Day, I was shocked by the behavior of Niles community members. People came up to me and shook my hand. They gave me extra water, and they saved me from harassment by a Niles cop. It was a compelling reminder to me that there is a groundswell of unrepresented support in Niles for Black Lives Matter and the end of white supremacy. I have hope that one day the village of Niles will reckon with our complicity in these oppressive systems and codify material change that will make good on the promise of freedom for all. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Trish?
Tisha Dowdy, Niles. In May, another school shooting occurred in Texas. At May's board meeting, I made a public comment asking how prepared the village of Niles was if any such school shooting would have ever occurred in our town. I noted several schools in the area that had incidents from the fall leading into winter, ranging from verbal threats to guns, fires, etc. Here I stand asking how prepared the village of Niles would have been if havoc ensued during the 4th of July parade or post-parade party. I also ask why the village and the Park District did not cancel the post-parade celebration in light of what happened in Highland Park. Your next thought might be, we didn't know. I saw in the Niles Journal that the Niles Police Department went up to Highland Park to assist. Clearly, people knew. The shooting occurred in Highland Park at 10:14. Typically, the parade here in Niles wraps up around 11. Then the post-parade celebration starts and goes until 2. I was many miles from Niles on the 4th, and my phone was ringing off the hook with what had happened. I am sad that the village and the Park District did not cancel the post-parade celebration, not for only safety reasons, but also for the respect of the people who were injured and those who had died of a senseless act upon society. Several towns in the area canceled their fireworks, festivals, and carnivals. Morton Grove, Skokie, Park Ridge, and so many more. Did you know that the Park Ridge Police Department got a tip later that day that the shooter was on his way to Lutheran General to have himself admitted? Dempster isn't too far from Grennan Heights. What if he made a detour to the post-party parade here in town? Hopefully, the event at Grennan was done for the day by the time he might have driven down Dempster. There is no telling. I get that lots of planning goes into this event, but it should have been canceled. I understand you cannot reply to my comment. However, I will be available after the meeting if anyone would like to offer an explanation, or you can email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha.
Good evening again, Board.
Steve.
So, yeah, 4th of July parade. I'm very thankful for it being conducted very safely, and everybody was well taken care of that participated as well as enjoyed it. In regards to the previous two commenters that just spoke here, Tisha's right to freedom of the press, her First Amendment, was being violated at the library by David Sutherland, and it's on video. This guy over here is up to no good. He is up to dividing this village, which is predominantly white. I myself am a first-generation born American. My parents are of mixed races, but that doesn't matter to people who just see color. And I have had it up to here with the Niles Coalition being very unprofessional across the street and around the town. And the belligerency of these people is mind-boggling, but I don't know why there is collusion with this group from members of this board. And I know that there's better options to pursue with persecuting a group for political terrorism. Now, when you think about the Niles Coalition, they go through the town and they intimidate board members of this village. They go over to the library and they cause a ruckus, and they show up to these board members' houses and write messages on their sidewalk in front of their house. I'm thankful that, or I'm hoping that none of you have had that happen to you here, and I hope it never does. But the people across the street that are serving on the Niles Library Board, they've gone through a lot of grief and drama. And speaking of grief, if we go back about 2 years ago, this village was dealing with grief of losing some of our fellow police officers in Texas. And we were donated masks by an anonymous individual, and David Sutherland of the Niles Coalition vowed to get rid of those masks during our grieving process. So that's who that group is, and they're not going away soon. Something needs to be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? That, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Pardon me. Our Deputy Village Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Strzelecki?
Yes.
Trustee Niedermeyer?
Yes.
Trustee Matthias? Trustee Jeckett?
Yes.
So adjourned.
Very good. Good night, everybody, and thank you.